what portions thereof. But the police department is a critical factor for this community because the public knows them, they relate to the public, some of them 2 and 3 generations. So I think we're gonna lose part of our focus of being a small, friendly city by the sea if we start outsourcing too much. And that has a concern for me, so I like the longer view.
So, okay, so I've made a note about the multi-year financial projections have been helpful in the past and will be helpful as you discuss these very difficult issues of your revenue and your expenditures. Okay. Now,
can I make a statement?
Yes,
might be a
please.
little bit off subject, but the city puts forth significant effort in our RDP 21 efforts to support the military base here. And which is good. Military base is outstanding economic resource for the region, but not so much for the city of Port Hueneme. And it seems like our efforts to cooperate and coordinate with the Navy base falls on deaf ears. There's a significant number of businesses on the Navy base that thumb their nose at the city regarding purchasing a business license to operate within the city boundaries. And we can't get the Navy to really cooperate with us on collecting that. But yet, we go way out of our way and send people to Washington, D.C. To support the local Navy base. So, it seems like the community goodwill is only going one way around here. And I don't know how to address that, but I want to mention it, whether it's through RDP 21, even though we might stand out from the group in having an issue with the Navy, I think we might consider doing that. And any influence we have with our federal regulators, I think we should let it be known that the city of Port Hueneme is suffering because people who have a responsibility to do something, they're required to get business licenses, aren't doing it.
so I've made a note up here under the financial path about business licenses at the Navy. It's not the Navy, but obviously the businesses out there, because that can be part of an overall discussion that the council has about having your multi-year financial plan. Jim?
Just real quick, like, and I know exactly, and I commend you bringing up that issue. We have considered other factors, as I understand, with the city. One may be an agency that we contract, and Councilman Breeze and I both have volunteered to go out on the base and individually, in a nice way, contact each of the major companies out there and ask them, explain to them why it's important that we have their tax support and work with them. RDP is a different type of situation, and that's one portion of the key, but I think we need to work with some of the contractors in the base on an individual, personal, more personalized level is a better word for it. And that can be done.
Yeah, that actually gets into item number 10.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's move on to number 10.
Okay, so I was the one that wanted a little bit more discussion, and I know that we've heard some updates that prior to the election, there were some folks that actually came to the city and paid their fees and paid us the money back from the time maybe that they had started their businesses. So we were able to then collect some new business fees. But my proposal here is that we really need to enforce everything that we have within our business license ordinance. You know, from the point of if somebody has an established business here or comes into the city to do business and collect some money, whether there are consultants, et cetera, for those on base, for those within the city boundaries here, not on base or not on the port, but also including those tenants on port property, that we need to enforce everything that we have in the ordinance.
I agree.
And so it would be that, you know, if they don't pay up and in 60 days, we have a process here, well, we need to walk that line. We need to walk everything down that we have to enforce. And so I think we've done that with some people, but the problem is that we can't identify folks. And so my suggestion here is that maybe we come up with an amnesty program that says, okay, company ABC out at the Navy, maybe you've been here 5 or 6 years, but if you pay us a business license tax from the year 2015-16 and moving forward, you don't have to pay some of those, past charges, nor penalties, because I believe our penalties then in the ordinance say that it's 100% of your business license fee. And so maybe we just say it's amnesty day up until this point, and then after that we're going to enforce everything that's in our ordinance. So it gives people an opportunity to say, ABC company, yeah, they've been at fault, they haven't paid, but now they're going to be good corporate citizens, they're going to pay their fair share, and then identify themselves in the right categories that we currently have, and then move forward. So at least it allows us to really kind of take a feel for how many businesses are out there. We've only speculated how many and what their contracts are worth, but I believe if we set an example and say, hey, moving
I
forward.
think we should advertise that idea in the Lighthouse, which is a newspaper that goes on the Navy base.
Absolutely, absolutely, but I think it's a way to really kind of coalesce what we tried to make work with the measure, what didn't work with the voters because there may be some miscommunication, and then also then moving forward and figuring this out, because I believe there's a lot of money left on the table because we don't have maybe the staff or the time to enforce the ordinance, but also too, we just don't know how many individual businesses there are that really do business here in Fort Wayne.
Okay.
Mayor Snopp is right on target here. I totally agree with her in this regard. And I think all of us know that there's a lot of businesses that do business within Fort Wayne. Gordon, our best roofing company, do they have a business license? For
I'll bet
supporting?
not.
Huh?
I'll bet not.
We have in Hueneme Bay, a $1 million contract
It's
approximately.
about a $1.7 million contract that will run over about 6 months.
Yeah, so,
And
that's-
our landscape.
And the
Yes,
landscape
so-
about 300,000.
Okay. Here's
What
business.
happens here is, we hold, in our contract language, we hold the contractor responsible to do these things. That's not our role to
No.
monitor.
okay, we're
How-
gonna,
So time out there. Yeah, Jan, so,
thank you for the comment.
yeah, thank you.
Okay, yeah, okay, because we don't even have enough time for
I
this. We
think
can't-
Jim had some finishing comments in there, Robert.
Just
Yeah.
real quick wrap up. We have a heck of a lot, I've identified just off the top of my head in the last week, about 8 or 10 businesses
Okay.
that come and do business here. And just plumbers, we probably have 8 or 10.
So you could give those names to the finance
We
director.
need to follow up on them.
So
We're not
what,
doing
so
it. There's
your
ways to
task
do
is
it.
to give those names to the finance director.
So, I mean, just to speak to the issue at Hueneme Bay, if you come to the city for a permit, you're required to get a license. So if they didn't get a permit, we have no way of catching them other than, by word of mouth.
So you hold the building permit out if they don't have a business license? Is that how it does?
Right.
And
yeah.
workers' comp.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm assuming they got a building permit, they'll have a business license.
Okay.
Okay.
And just one other quick thing, just to kind of give you what's been done since the measure came in place. We have sent out a lot of letters, almost 300 letters to businesses that we've found either on the base, at the port, realtors, whatever. We sent out that. We've also sent out about 116 second notices after that.
What determined if they got a second notice?
Whether number one, whether they didn't respond, or there might be a reason that when we sent the letter out that they didn't really need a license, say they were a nonprofit or something along those lines. And then the actual license we did add is almost 60 licenses, which isn't much, but It's more than we were getting. The problem that we've had is that we have done various Freedom of Information Act requests to the federal government. And that was the avenue when we went to San Diego that they told us that this was the way that was gonna open all these doors to us. Well, it hasn't happened. And we've had various follow-up emails or whatever, and they just kind of moving us around. We're still waiting on that because,
Just like they've been doing for the past 20 years.
well, yeah, kind of similar, but, you know, we're waiting, you know, once, and the way they described it sounded really good because they give us the addresses. These would be the ones that are coming right through the gate because they're on their security list and all this stuff. And it sounded real good that, you know, we get this list, but we just haven't got that list. The other two things, I'm sorry. We have approached two contractors to see if they could give us some assistance on this. And although pricey, but it may be, you know, because it's new money to us, they want roughly about 40% of that first license. So it may be a good way to do it, especially on the ones on the Navy, because, you know, we just can't find them. I mean, that's the problem. But any assistance that we could get, yeah, I mean, definitely, we appreciate it. Just give us their name and we'll do the research.
So, maybe one more
Real
comment?
short line.
Very
Well, I
short.
agree with the guy, Mr. Bravo, and we can do it, but a lot of it is a personal relationship. We go out there and talk to them on our own. And as a representative for the city, impress on them why it's important, and ask them to join and become a participant. Simple as that.
Okay, so in terms of any moving forward, the staff is working on it, and then we'll get back to the council on what it might look like to increase the enforcement, some recommendations. Is that a fair statement? Okay. Okay, then number 14, transparency of our city government. Interest, what does that look like for council members?
Well,
Deck?
one last, sorry, I'm back on business license.
Oh, okay.
I think that we need to take another shot at updating our business license ordinance.
Yes.
Okay, so all of that could come back as, for a discussion, of course, with the city council. Okay. Okay, so transparency.
Transparency in our city government, I believe, is absolutely essential for, we work for the public, period. We need to bring things out more so that they're aware of them. And I hope, and this was part of my campaign, and there's at least one other councilman I know of that believe in the same thing. We need to move to transparency so the public knows what the heck we're doing and has a better view, a nicer view of who we are, period. No more back things and secret consent agendas or whatever the case might be. Let's get on to the public we work for.
Can I just make a clarification? I don't think anybody here is actually operating under the non-transparent or, you know, I just want to clarify because it sounds like council member is saying that we've not abided by those rules. We have abided by rules. I think what he's asking for is maybe a little bit more, an extended period of time, or, you know, instead of getting the agenda published 72 hours ahead, we're looking at maybe a week ahead or 5 days ahead. But I don't believe anybody should assume that we've not been transparent. I just want to put that out there to clarify, okay?
I look at that as, it's a perceptual issue. We talked about that earlier. Perception is 99% of the law. And I think we did make some progress this morning in talking about advance agenda preparation, forward agendas, even several weeks in advance of a meeting. But I kind of see transparency also kind of bleeding over to public participation and the desire to engage the public. How do we best engage the public? And I see, you know, I'm kind of spilling over to number is 15. And there's a couple of ideas in there about volunteer programs, and that's all fine and good, but, you know, I think we need to have a broader public participation plan, and that would be, you know, periodic town hall meetings, going out to HOAs, I guess we're going to be doing that here shortly with Sandpiper. Now, that was a request that was made of the city, but perhaps we should offer ourselves to do that. We're going to be talking about television and video recordings. So we don't have to answer all those questions today or have, because there's a whole menu of different ways that you can encourage greater access to government participation. And so I would advocate for maybe that as a goal, is to come up with a much broader, these are the ways that we can reach out to our constituents and our residents.
So all of those would require some identification of staff time to do them,
Yes.
which you know, you may be competing
Correct.
one thing with another.
Yeah, I realize that.
Two issues. Number one, what Councilman Pegg was saying, some of these town halls should be in Spanish for the Latino population. Number two, I agree and I disagree with the points of what the mayor had just said. When you put pay raises to the consent agenda with a 72-hour notice, that's not public transparency, not when how that pay raise and how much each individual is going to get is spread out between 20 pages of documents. That's not transparency.
Okay, so, yeah, so.
But did we not agree this morning to have a longer period of
The
time?
longer, this is what I agree with her, we
Yeah,
need a
so-
longer awareness.
There is, and there was a robust discussion of the consent calendar too, earlier today.
Jen, I don't know if you know, but we have less than an hour to go, just to try to keep you on schedule. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to number 16, that's public speaking. Moving back to the front of the meeting. That's the public comment portion. That's a council procedural kind of thing that presumably would come back to the city council, but just, you know, somebody wanted to talk about it, so what's the comment there without a long discussion?
Many other organizations, committees, so on, have a short 30-minute, allotted up to 30 minutes for public comments, each individual for no more than 3 minutes. We have ours at the end of it. Granted, we usually don't have a long council meeting, but Gordon Bone came to meet with the council and give a short little presentation about water or whatever it was, and he had to sit there through 3 hours of testimony. There's not that many people that talk in public comment. There's 2 or 3. If we move that part forward 30 minutes, there'll probably be 6 and 10 minutes, 9 minutes, that would be allocated to public speaking before the committee starts. If there's more than people that go over 30 minutes, then we can have that other portion at the end of the meeting. But for the sake of transparency, for the sake of the public, for the seniors, the handicapped.
Okay,
It's
your
only
point made. Okay, just, okay, yes.
Yeah, let me suggest something. My sense of order tells me new business goes at the end of the meeting. And I think we've had this discussion about if somebody shows up for a scheduled agenda item, then, you know, why should they have to sit through somebody else? But there's another agency that I'm familiar with. It actually has two components for public comments. Public comment at the beginning is it's agendized as a information report. Public comment at the end of the agenda is for anyone who wishes to bring a new item before the board. And you know, I think that you know, that may be a way to do it. You know, you're actually doubling the opportunity for people to speak that way.
So I think, since this is a council procedural issue, if there's an interest on the part of the council in bringing it back to a council meeting to discuss, that I think would be more efficient than trying to solve that today. Does that sound like the right approach?
Just as long as we get it resolved one way or another.
Okay.
We can bring it back and have some options to consider.
Yeah, this is not something new. We've heard this before. Yeah.
Okay, so place the discussion item, okay. So number 17 is adding TV and internet. Is that a budgetary issue, or I think the understanding as to why is already stated, so I don't think we need to hear why that's important. But what's the issue with that?
Well, I'll let the council speak for themselves. I can tell you what we do now. So we audio tape the entire meeting. It is available within, Michelle, when do you usually post that online?
Usually the next day.
So within, say,
Okay.
24 hours, it is available for audio playback.
For audio. I see.
We don't live stream and we don't videotape, although we do have individuals in the community that have done that and posted them on just YouTube, right?
Well, Katie TV.
Katie, but under YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in our channel, right?
And so I think following up with what Cynthia is saying in the audio is that all the documents are actually posted then too. So somebody can, if they're listening but, you know, looking at the minutes, they could actually find the minutes then on our website as well following the meeting.
I've received communication from residents thanking the city for their audio tapes, and they appreciate it a lot better than video. They can do what they need to do while being able to listen, and they don't have to watch. You know, they can multitask and still find out what's going on in the city.
So is it a budgetary issue or, Jim? I think, go ahead.
I think the budgetary issue would be rather nominal, from what I understand. Audio, we could still do the audio, but there's a lot of people, and people come before the city council that want to be able to access it on the internet so they can watch it. I think this is transparency,
Okay.
and it should be done. It's just an
So I
absolutely
think,
critical thing.
okay, so maybe a couple other quick comments.
Well, just, just the history here for anyone who doesn't know, back in the early days of cable, the city decided they did not want a big channel, they gave it to the school board, so that's why we never had our own channel. Back when Tony Young was first elected, one of the first things I ever did with the city was she asked me to be on a citizen group that was looking at getting televising city council meetings. And for a while, we actually had Oxnard College do it, and do it on a tape delay basis on their channel. And those tapes still exist. I believe they're over at the library if you want to go check them out, if you're not interested. But then they were doing that for just a normal expense charge. Then they decided they were going to charge us a lot more money. So we decided not to do that. We looked at the equipment at the time, which was pretty expensive, and decided not to do that. However, talking to our good friend Bob Allen, the equipment the technology has changed radically, and I think the startup cost a lot less than it was, and so as everybody's moving towards streaming now, this probably makes even more sense than having it on cable.
Okay.
Can
One more comment.
Can I make just one comment on it? Okay,
No,
that's right.
I think we better not.
Not
just
right
because
now, I
the
think
interest
just-
of time.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Definition.
okay, Cynthia, so
I
we
would
can
just
wrap
say,
this one.
it really depends on what kind of program you want. If you want to do live streaming, that's different than taping and then, say, having it posted on the internet the next day. So I think it's probably something that what we would look for is this something that you would like us to investigate and bring back to you with
Yes.
some options and costs and different things like that? Because that
And I'm
is
seeing
really what I
council,
think we
okay.
would be looking for on this item, is just, is it worth us spending some time looking at it?
Sure. And I hear council members all nodding.
Okay.
Anyway. Okay, so moving forward, number 18, tourism, it's already underway. Unknown cost to expand it. Yes.
Can I add something? Is I attended as mayor a meeting that County of Santa Barbara and County of Ventura put together in Carpinteria, and we talked about really building cycling tourism for the area, that somehow people have taken cycling tours all over the country and other states, as well as in Europe, and what we have is a fantastic resource and backdrop to cycling tourism. And so it was talked about then, from people within the industry to then Visit Ventura and the Convention and Visitors Bureaus of several cities, including a very large one out of Santa Barbara. And all of us really, as a consensus, what we talked about is really looking at cycling tourism. Some cities and states draw tremendous amounts of dollars with people doing cycling. And they're going from point A to point B to point C, But what we have here is the Pacific Coast bike route and some other really great avenues, including the extended 2-lane kind of bike path, really from Ventura all the way into Carpinteria and Santa Barbara. And then Ojai, we have Ojai too. And so that's something that maybe could be added to then the tourism, because Hueneme does have part of this route here.
There's cyclists that you pass through. And, yeah, we need to look at a mixed-use bike lane on Ventura Road as another topic.
Okay.
So just an
They're already riding through our town.
Okay, so, item 22, support the right, oh, I'm sorry.
I'd be curious to hear about Market Street, and it
Okay.
sounds like there may be some interest that I wasn't aware of.
Market Street.
So we
what's that?
receive calls all the time, well, let me step back. We have never marketed Market Street or the 8.5 short. So how the words get out, I'm not sure, but we've had
Well,
several calls.
we did have a consultant come out here, what, 2 years ago? Did an analysis?
Well, they didn't, correct, they didn't market the site. What they did is they looked at our remaining sites coming out of the recession and what is our trade area? You know, we haven't evaluated that, and what position can we be in and what should we focus on? What should we identify as our future? The shocking news is that the Oxnard plant is solar built with commercial and office and retail, 500,000 square feet, that will take 20 years, if not longer, to absorb that, where those excess sites need to be converted. And that the only sector that was showing any strength at the time, and it was lukewarm, was the hospitality sector, hotels, because for 20 years there really hasn't been any new rooms added to the coastal zone in Ventura. And there was a concept of attracting the traveling public that's just driving by, is going up to Santa Barbara, that there may be a way to attract those visitors. But, so having said that, so we've got this economic audit that we did. It's not very good news, but I think we all knew that. So we've had several calls at various sites for hotels. The latest being an approved investor, they claim. This is a phone call, so it's not a written. It's an approved investor for Intercontinental, Hyatt, and what was the third? Marriott. We said, fine, that's great. Put it in writing. So we're still waiting because I get called all the time. Put it in writing, a letter of interest, and be specific as to your interest. He had mentioned that Market Street, they're looking at a mid-level 120-room motel, surface parking, a higher-end boutique at the 1.5 acres with a dinner house restaurant. That's nothing new. That's been in our general plan. You know, the community coveted a dinner house restaurant. There's nowhere to take your family and friends when they're visiting in Port Hueneme. We don't know how real these guys are, and we haven't got too excited until we resolve the disposition of Market Street with our long-range land use plan, which is we're confident that the city will be able to obtain ownership of Market Street, fee ownership, and we have fee ownership of the 1.5 acre shoreline line.
So it's just continuing. Okay, so we need to keep moving so we can do the dot voting and see what the council's priorities really are. We're going to skip over, I had written up water conservation, but it turns out that it was in something else, and there are only about 3 more. B3 and 4, I think, are related, and then the museum is 7. So,
What department is that?
So this list, Janet, you have, that you noted in B's, I think these are A's. The first, no, in the paper on the flip chart here,
yeah.
because that's from the
Oh.
other list. Yeah, so just so that when you're making notes, that you get the notes on the right page.
Thank you. I will make sure that those are all changed.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
I've facilitated meetings like this one.
Yeah.
You have to do
No,
that.
you're absolutely right, and
Not your
I will make
instructions.
all of those
Thank you.
change. Thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna put the real B. See, I provide a little facilitator entertainment here today. Okay, so real quickly, 3 and 4, maybe this could be addressed together on the true Bs. Council members wanted to talk about, I think, the water conservation.
So we talked Carmen, you want to talk a little bit about what we've done, and then Chris has anything to add?
Well, currently, we started working at Miranda Park. The beach will come at some point in our plan, but we started in Miranda Park with changing our irrigation, our sprinkler systems, our sprinkler heads to those that are water conservation, and also putting it under a controller that will help with a satellite. That'll help us determine, depending on the humidity in the air, how much water is available, the sprinkling. So it changes the water usage. So we've developed a plan to begin at the Miranda Park. Next, we'll go to Bowman Springs Park, then come back around to Hueneme Beach, then to implement water conservation, to change the irrigation. But also what we're doing citywide is looking at our irrigation systems, making sure that we're testing them so that we're getting to repairs or leaks quickly. So that's step one, is identify any problems that we have with our current irrigation system. Step two is then to repair them. And then to also see how much then water conservation that's providing. I think we know, for example, Bowling Springs Park, that's a big, the irrigation is set up so that it's watering 5 gallons per minute. So if there's a leak, we're going to be wasting a lot of water very quickly. So we want to make sure that staff is scheduled to look at these on a weekly basis to ensure that we don't have any leaks. So we're looking at doing that at the beach as well. I mean, this is a city, it's going to be a long-term project. It's not going to be something that's going to be done overnight. We're also looking at funding opportunities, and I think Chris can talk about some of the grants that are available, not to just, the city's trying to take advantage of any money that's out there, but also that's available to our residents as well.
Well,
Very briefly.
yes. I'm going to save most of my comments about water for the other end of the end. But the grant that Carmen is talking about is Metropolitan. We get some water through Pegasus, which is that's where they get from Metropolitan. The turf removal project currently pays you $3 per square foot to remove grass and that's other less water consuming landscaping. There's plenty of rebates as we capitalized on changing irrigation systems, changing your toilets and things like that. There's all kinds of things on the bewaterwise.com website. And I'd just like to commend Carmen for understanding that the city is one of the big users of water, and the city has to lead the way in water conservation. And we have some very big challenges in terms of water conservation, which I think we might talk about later on. And so I'm just going to stop for now.
Okay, good. Okay, so keep moving forward on that. 7 is the museum, and a council member checked that one. What was the interest?
Yeah. I think we've had a renewed effort down at the museum to inventory what's there and take a look at how our museum is operated. But also the Friends of the Bard Mansion, which is a historical building on the Navy base that was built by Senator Bard, who was basically the founder of Fort Hueneme. It's expressed an interest in joining forces with the city's museum in moving all of the artifacts to one location, presumably the museum, and then do some grant searching to upgrade the facility and also to professionally catalog all of the museum artifacts. So I think that's a worthwhile effort, and I hope that staff would support the Friends of the Bard in a manner to work together and apply for some grants and hopefully make that a reality.
Doug, it seems too that there was talk about interconnecting some of our various other facilities that can be attractors, like the lighthouse and Bard Mansion itself. And then I hear Sylvia's talking about cycle tourism. Well, I mean, is that a way that we can connect some of these dots, to take the most of it?
Sylvia next.
Certainly, adding to that, the CB Museum and the Maritime Museum, not too far from us, actually on the bus route that connects the city and that part of the beach or that beach. I believe that idea is wonderful, and if, it's really a way of conserving the history of not only the city, but of this region, Bard was really a visionary.
He was. Bob Allen just told me he's with the school district, and we're hooking up to find out how we can get some of the local high school kids to put some activities together to share local history with the other high schools.
Absolutely. So I think that's a great idea too, and it could possibly even be, you know, a way that we could renovate and or, you know, help engage them more of the stuff that they have at the Barn Mansion, because it's beautiful what they have there. If you ever get to go into the mansion and on the tour. But, you know, certainly it's a way of establishing then the history of this area. And I know that one of our commissions has actually undertaken that, you know, historical perspective on video for the last couple of years. And so this would be a way of then encouraging that same aspect, but, you know, physically.
Trying to keep it short, the Barton Mansion is an absolute treasure trove of history of this area and as well as Ventura County. The problem is access on it, which the Friends of the Barge are working towards that, some grants possibly. It is critical that we keep this moving forward, and it's a tourist draw. I mean, it's a destination point, along with some of these other issues. You know, we combine that with CD Museum and other lighthouse we have to deal with.
Okay, so we can move on to the last one to discuss briefly is number 19, maintain infrastructure. It has to do with a rate study, I believe.
Okay.
And
I'll give a quick summary of this. What we'd like to do is bring in front of the council a permission to issue RFPs to get a rate consultant on board to study our rates. We have compelling issues in water that we want to address. The two main issues are the fact that because of the drought, we're being placed on these allocation plans from First United, and we know that Metropolitan will now probably be implemented on July 1st. We're currently supposed to be reducing 15% use of our United groundwater. We believe currently the state water, which is the Callegas water, which will start July 1st, at this time, if it were implemented now, we would have to reduce 30% of our water. As more precipitation comes between now and that time, that number can only go down, and we're hopeful that it will, but right now it could be as high as 30%. The city will have no ability to conserve that level of water unless we modify our rate structure. So the city council will need to have a look at what this consultant brings to the table and make decisions about. And that does not mean that we're necessarily raising water rates. That's not what I said. All I said was we're going to look at a different structure. What we need is a tiered structure which says the more water you use, the higher you pay. The attempt on that component of it would really be a cost equal thing. We just want to not pay penalties as a city and then send them out to those users who are not conserving water. However, the city council can also make decisions about whether or not we even want to do that. And if you want to continue to pay that out of the fund balance, the water fund balance, we can do that and then hope that the drought goes away. The possibilities are endless. But we'd like to get the data, get it presented to the city council, let the city council know what the issues are and be able to make a decision. The other component of it is we have the water system master plan that was completed in 2011, which asks for and recommends $30 million in improvements over an extended period of time. We need to get that capitalized. We go look at how much that's going to cost. Do we get that in front of the city council? I mean, you can make determinations of whether you want to undertake these projects or whether you're not want to undertake them. If you do decide to undertake them, how aggressively do you want to complete them?
Excuse me, Chris, I thought that the council already did that. We identified a certain amount of funds that we wanted set aside each year to do that already.
In fact, since this plan I think was put together, we are collecting funds. There's about, I think there's excess revenues every year which are building up a fund balance to do these projects. There's, I think there's something like $6 or $7 million of a fund balance now.
But
That's
that's what we
only
need
a-
to redo it for.
That's, well, no, I'm not saying we have to, I'm not saying we have to redo the the master plan, not at all. I'm saying we need to understand how many projects we can do for that fund balance and the excess revenues, which we may use as bonding capacity, and see if that suits the council in terms of what we can get accomplished and how soon we can accomplish it. It's a possibility that it could result in the council saying we need to be more aggressive with the capital program, or we need to be less aggressive. I don't know where it'll land, but we're going to present to the council the opportunities, the possibilities, and the council will be able to make this determinations of how aggressive they want to be on the capital program, and that will determine whether or not we need to do any type of adjustments to the rates.
I think too that, you know, this is moving, helping us move forward on those things that maybe have been stalled in the past, or at least when we collected the data, we then now know how much it's going to take. Right? I think undertaking a rate study is really wonderful and very necessary. And, you know, with the information that we've received, it's only going to get worse. So there's a reduction coming, and then there are other further reductions. We're trying to get those numbers adjusted or see what we can live within. But I think too is that we need to look at some other options too, is that, you know, the city of Oxnard created this wonderful recycling program, and they have yet to turn the switch on there. They've been trying to collect other customers. Could we possibly see that as one of our options, as a way that we can engage then a source of water that could possibly be there in the future for us, that could then be part of what we bring to our park system and or maybe other uses throughout the city. So that's number one. And number two is when we're looking at a modified rate structure, I think we need to talk to our customers. And you know, maybe this is part of where the Port Wayne, the water district that we have, needs to take a look at that. But certainly some of the larger customers that play a significant role in this would be the military as well as then the harbor district. And I think the rates have been really in size of pipe, you know, so if you have a larger pipe diameter, then your rate is something different. Well, that could be like a gas guzzler too. If you're guzzling gas, you're going to be paying more. And so looking at all those factors and components, I think it's maybe not a 2-option thing, but maybe like a 4 or 5 piece option, that we need to look at all these other avenues perhaps to then build the portfolio of where we're going to have the water for the city of Port Wayne and our customers.
So Chris, will the scope of work include this idea of really kind of peeling back the layers of the onion regarding our cost allocation program? How much, you know, cost allocation is figuring into our rate
He was
structure?
talking about water allocation.
Yeah, and that's why I'm asking, will the scope of work go to that level? If we're talking about a water rate study with the potential of setting adjustments in those rates, shouldn't we get an initial understanding
I
of
agree.
how those rates are computed today because of cost allocation?
Yes.
Things like, and I'll give you examples, I'm concerned about that we may be charging our ratepayers cost recovery for our water meter installation, which is not functioning. Those are the sort of things I would like to kind of drill down to. I'd like to take a look at extending out the life of our replacement schedule, because that'll figure in how much money you have to collect from your ratepayers for capital replacement down the road. And will the study take a look at these other funding opportunities that are coming out of Sacramento, state water bond monies and this new enhancement infrastructure district to replace redevelopment? You're being asked a lot here. I'm just curious, as your scope of study, scope of work, is it really going to encompass all of that? It's pretty comprehensive.
It's very easy. The answer is yes.
So that'll come back to the council.
All of those things will be, we will show you, in order for you to look at rates and make decisions, you'll have to see what the expenses are. We'll show you the components of the expenses. We'll show you the implications of the capital project, various scenarios. We can tailor it to show you whatever you want to know. Anything that the council wants to see will be there. In reference to your second question, PHWA is already in the process of doing these trying to attempt to get grant money, look at projects, look at regional projects. We had in response also to the mayor's question, we had a 2-hour meeting this morning with the city of Oxnard, which was very fruitful. We've discussed various partnering projects that would include the GREAT project, our facility there, the city's PHWA plant, also the treatment up at United. We have a meeting next week with United as well. All of these things will be considered. We're looking at the big picture. We're also looking at the picture of finances, which you'll have to be able to see to get your decision made.
Do you have a guess as to your timeline?
We're hoping to get the RFP, the request for RFPs on for the 16th meeting. However, based on the meeting we get today, we had another idea, which was we may want to coordinate with other agencies in the county, which are also considering rate increases. So we may delay that just another meeting or so if that group effort, which we discussed this morning, comes to fruition.
Thanks.
Okay, great. So we've now touched on very lightly everything that council members checked. So I've given council members 5 dots, and the intent is to ask council members to place a dot on the things that are really your top priorities. Now, things are going to move forward per the discussion that we had, but staff has just some limited capacity, and so it's important for the city manager and staff to know the direction that the council as a body would like. So if you take your 5 dots and place them on any of the items that are up there, then we'll see what emerges.
Can they put all their dots on one?
Oh, no, absolutely. I'm glad you asked that because, yeah, the idea is 1 dot, 1 vote. Yeah, 1 dot, 1 vote. Okay, so.
Do you want us to?
Thank you so much, Jan.
Well, no, we're not done yet. You get up there.
I have another meeting.
We're not done yet.
No?
No, you did. I usually no, 1 dot, 1 vote.
So you can be the big bucks for it.
It's not something I really want to do. It's going to be a lot of work.
Well done. So, where do you want to get this?
Red Sox. See how close we are on Mark.
It's pretty good.
We're close to finishing our classifications plan.
For the coming budget process.
Just close to the contract. So that's going to come to council.
That's tie into the budget cycle.
Yeah, no, everything from the other side.
I mean,
So, yeah,
We'll bring in.
actually, committees, we're going to have different things that a change. No, we're, and then, yeah. It's, you know.
That shows you.
That one is,
But no. They don't get that way.
It's a concept. You know, there's a lot
I'm not.
part of
Huh? Yeah.
But I mean, to the extent that, you know, yeah, exactly. It's fair. That's the good, because we set those.
And so then we
were showing.
So you
I mean, like, $100. But at least. There's enough areas.
We had to go to color coded dots.
Yeah,
But an elected
probably should, and you know, no, I don't. But there are also, there's some things that we can jump on for bonding, that we can go in with other entities. Maybe kind of spread the cost around. That's what we did with the wastewater.
there's like a little,
5 years ago.
Like that half basement.
yeah, you go down and down the surrounds on them, you walk around, there's just small.
We're not asking for money. If we ask for the 30 million, yeah, that's a big one. So, yeah.
All right. Okay, as we wrap up here.
Okay, everybody, if we're gonna just try to wrap up the meeting, thanks.
So, there are 3 items that ended up with 3 dots or more. Those are the sand replenishment program, the financial path for the city, and the business license ordinance enforcement and associated things. So those are the 3 that ended up with 3 or more. There are a number with 2, including the transparency and public participation, the Market Street supporting developers on that, the water supplies issue also had 2. So that gives staff a sense as to where council is really going to be placing your emphasis during the year. Cynthia, could you comment on what you and the staff will be doing in terms of bringing back resource needs for any of these items?
Well, first I'll say today's information, when Dan gives us a report back, that'll be coming to council for acceptance.
Yeah.
So that's one. But what the staff will be doing is taking your priorities. We'll be looking at that in the context of some of the capacity issues, and by that I mean resources. You know, we've talked about how we're going to address our fiscal situation. We've talked about vacancies. We've talked about vacancies, but maybe refilling with positions that are more appropriate based on where we are today. So we'll be looking at all this in the context of both people and also our budget issues this year. And then we will come back to the council and with a work plan, if you will, for the year coming forward. And that work plan will filter right into the budget in terms of how we budget for this next year, which is essentially.
So that's how this gets implemented and how the council will determine whether you can actually do everything that's up here or not. This is
Would it
showing.
make sense that you have like a kind of a rough draft and a much more condensed version that could be made available as part of a public discussion item? So
Well,
that
that's what when this comes back, that would be part of that, would be a discussion, you guys can talk about what you did.
before you get to your work plan.
Right,
Okay.
that'll happen before.
Okay.
So we'll be able to talk about all this.
Yeah, I will be doing a report out of this, and that will be, I think, like what you're talking
Okay.
about. It will show this information.
Cynthia, can you just help for the new council members? When is about the time we bring the budget back to then be adopted for the new year?
So we usually do a budget workshop in May, and that's followed by an opportunity for the public to weigh in on the budget items, and then we'll bring it back for adoption in June, usually early June, first or second meeting in June, depending on if there's any changes, major changes. Usually before that time, we'll be talking about anything special, like for example, if you have some new items that you've added up here, and if there's a cost implication to those, then we may be talking to you in advance of that, so that we could come back with some budget options for you. In other words, we might find that you can do 3 or 4 things, you might not be able to do 5. You could tell us which ones, even within that, as you approve your budget, which ones are the most critical to go forward maybe this year. Again, that assumes that there's a limited amount of financial resource available, or people resource available. So.
Okay, so I've noted report from me first, a council discussion of the report, so you can confirm, modify, budget discussion of the items, what is it going to take to actually do these things, and then a work plan coming out of that. So that's between now and probably June, for all of that.
I'm looking forward. I mean, this is a pretty intense effort, and there's a lot of work that goes into translating this to action. And do you do this every year?
We did it last year.
And I'm wondering, would it be maybe make this a 2-year cycle? And the reason I suggest that is that, the big change occurs at each one of election periods. And this is, I look at all the things that we have on board here, as well as what you had last year.
Do a 2-year budget too?
I'm kind of wondering if you want to extend the period out for this.
So you can do a 1-year or 2-year budget. 2-year budget usually do a midterm review and update anyway. So it's not like you don't look at it.
No, rather than going through this whole exercise again in a year, but really it's more of a review, midterm.
We could. I always think it's good to have these kind of workshops every year because things change over time. Priorities come up and maybe things fall off. But yeah, whether you do a 1-year or 2-year budget, you still have to review it in the interim. You don't set it aside. The only concern with sometimes doing the 2-year budget is because our finances are a little bit volatile. It may warrant a more in-depth look until everything stabilizes. So that's the only thing I would say. I mean, if we had to come back, say the world threw us some other big thing we had to deal with next year unanticipated. But it happens apparently. So like I said, 1 year or 2 year, you always revisit. But in uncertain times, a lot of cities go to a 1 year. So do you have a thought?
No, some cities have 1 year, some cities have 2 years, and volatile years, even if there's a 2-year budget, you still have to revisit it. So, I mean, there's no one right model. They both work. They absolutely both work. 2-year models and 1-year models.
I think we've done 2-year in the past. I've seen budgets that were.
They do work.
When things are more stable, we were doing 2 years.
Yeah. So I've handed out an evaluation form so that you have, let's just give a quick little outline of the rest of the afternoon. The first thing that we're going to be doing is hearing just a short year in review from the city manager, have an opportunity for a little bit of Q&A. Then we are going to have another short discussion of factors that contribute to the success of these various accomplishments. Now that we have the department heads here, it'll be a nice opportunity to hear from some department heads. Then we're going to spend the rest of the time on this document, which you have in color, which is the priorities document. What we'll be doing is first giving you an orientation to that, and then I will be asking council members to either confirm these items or to modify if there's modifications needed. And then we'll be doing some dot voting, and that will just be the council members, to indicate what are the top priorities after all of these. So we'll see what the council's consensus is on the items that are top priorities. So that's what we're going to do, and I'd like now to turn it over to Cynthia to give her year in review.
Thank you. For the most part, the review is going to be in pictures, because I think pictures say a lot about words, and I'll supplement that with my comments. I do have some pictures that, for some of you, you've seen them, you know them, but I realized we would probably have some members of the public here, and I thought it might be a good idea to include a few extra things in here. So there may be some things in here that are things you already know, but again, I did that for the benefit of the public, so let's have some. 2014, so I have to say I'm extremely proud of the team in Port Hueneme, the staff, and the things we accomplished in 2014. It was a very unusual year, and there were a lot of things that we didn't anticipate having to work on and deal with. But at the end of the day, we came through it, and staff did an exceptional job, and I just want to say that I couldn't be prouder of the group that I have working with me. Just a little bit kind of preface to one of our big issues is the history of the harbor. And I thought this was a great picture because it doesn't get shown very often. But it basically shows what Port Hueneme looked like. And if you look here, this is about the same location as I think about here. But you can see sand just sort of flowed around this corner here in 1929. And then just to kind of give you an idea, when the port then was built, you can see originally we would have had sand here, but by 1945, when that jetty was installed, there was no more sand. So, you know, again, just kind of a little bit of that's what it was before, and that's what happened when the port went into place. And again, you can see the result there. So that kind of sets the stage for what we had to deal with in 2014. So right around March, April timeframe, actually probably starting in February, we started to get high tides, we had storms, probably relatively normal storm events. And because the federal government during the sequester chose not to fund sand replenishment, we incurred quite a bit of damage. In fact, probably where we're looking at right now is close to $4 million in damage that the city incurred last year. And this was stuff that when you did your goal setting, when the council did its goal setting last year, we had not anticipated any of this happening. So on top of that, we had overtopping in front of the promenade, and you can see real clearly here. These are people walking on what would be the pathway. It was really just a huge mess. And this didn't happen one time. This happened like 4 times during the course of last year. And that created a lot of extra work for staff, a lot of extra costs. And so these were pretty significant events for a small community like this to have to deal with. On top of that, another unexpected result of the loss of sand was we had a significant amount of pier damage. So much pier damage, in fact, that we had to close the pier because it was deemed to be unsafe for a large part of, I don't know, what were we down, about 8 months?
About 7.
7,
But
8
no,
months.
about 9 months actually.
Okay, so 9 months. And of course, this had a big impact on people's use of the public area, the beach area, but it also affected local businesses. It affected our tenant down there at the Peyton, the Pier and Bait, in a very significant way. But what we also learned is it affected some of the retailers out in this area here. Because a lot of people that come to the beach and come to the pier, they go to the various stores around here and they pick up supplies and things like that. And of course, with the pier closed and so much damage at the beach, that was heavily impacted, as was our parking fees. So people didn't come, we didn't receive the parking fees that we would have normally done. So this had a big impact on the city all the way around. And then, fortunately, in the late summer, fall, we started to see reconstruction. One of the things I do want to point out is that in working with Assemblyman Jeff Gorell, Hannibal Jackson, Doss Williams, the council and the staff were able to secure $2 million in grant funding from the state, really unprecedented. And those are funds that are true grants. We don't have to match them, we don't have to pay them back. It really was the state stepping up and recognizing that the federal government kind of handed us a pretty bad deal. And so what would have been a $4 million out-of-pocket expense, fortunately, I guess good news, bad news, is only a $2 million out-of-pocket expense. So it could certainly have been worse. It's still pretty bad. But we did start to see, in the kind of the nick of time, reconstruction that also included the fact that we got which was again almost unprecedented, the California Coastal Commission. I think there was only one opposing vote, voted to allow us to do the shoreline protection with the rock revetment for full, what was the full distance at the end of the day, Greg?
No, it was more like 1,400.
About 1,400 feet. And this is a coastal commission that does not like shore protection. They prefer managed retreat and sand bypassing and things like that. So really, really unprecedented. Really proud of the staff. I mean, we had our council members out there doing, you know, pulling any string they could, knocking on any door they could. It was really an amazing, amazing to be part of that, the team that pulled that off. That was a really big deal. Oh, but
Cynthia, can I add too, is that when you were recognizing the assembly and all our elected officials, even our Governor Jerry Brown came to our support as well.
he did. In fact, on the the day after the wall fell, which we had been pleading with the Coastal Commission to give us permits because we couldn't access funds without getting a permit. He stepped in, Jeff Burrell met with him, stepped in, and he came to our aid, and we got our permit. Unfortunately, 3 days later than we needed it. But we were ready to roll. We had granite construction out there literally within hours of getting those approvals. So, again, amazing effort on the part of the City Council and the staff, just amazing.
And let's not forget the citizens who took the
And
time
the
to go to
citizens,
the
yes,
Coastal Commission
we
as
had,
well.
this was amazing. For a community this size, I would say we had roughly 50 or 60 people show up at the Coastal Commission meeting that was in Ventura. Drove all the way out there. And that's an amazing feat actually for any size community. Yes, and all with their Save Wainimi Beach buttons, which are now collector items, I guess. Anyway, so if we look at where we were in 2014, you can see this is down kind of by the Market Street, Surfside Drive areas down here. The waves were coming up and overtopping even onto the sidewalk areas right there. And here you can see a huge scarp face here. It's getting really close to Ventura Road. And then this is what the same area looks like today. So really amazing. This is taken over the weekend from standing on top of the lighthouse, whatever it's called, the little veranda thing up there, looking back towards Winding Pier. And it looks great. Our only concern is if we don't get a mid-cycle dredge, where are we going to be this coming fall? And that's a concern. So those efforts we need. Chris is now in charge of this, making sure we get our sand issues dealt with, and we are partnering with both the County of Ventura as well as maybe the port and some other groups. And I know, Tom, you had some questions about that. So I believe Chris is prepared to talk to everybody about what we're doing on that score, so you'll be able to get that update today. We also took the opportunity to look at doing some improvements while we're out there fixing a lot of stuff. One thing that we did was, this is what the walkway used to look like here, and there was sort of a, I'll call it a big long ashtray here. It was a big sand area, it dipped down from the sidewalk. So here's the pathway, dipped down, just really sand. There was no plants or irrigation or anything in that area. And kind of could be a trip hazard, people kind of fall off. There's a little bit of about 4, 5, 6 inches in some cases drop off right here. And what we did, because when we had to put the seawall back in, we had the contractor out there. What we had them do, and then we supplemented with our own city staff efforts, is we filled that in. So now the walkway goes all the way back to the wall, and I have to say that if you've walked out there, it has made a huge difference. And I often walk out there with my dog, and people say all the time, everybody loves this wider walking area. It allows for people to pass each other very easily and not feel squashed in with bikes and trikes and buggies and things like that. We also added, we have a number of, the flag plazas have these big concrete walls, and we added these little clips here, because you can kind of see in this picture, there's a lot of damage from skateboarders. So we have a lot of cracks and this area is kind of needing a lot of work, but at least to help us delay in having to fix this more quickly, we've added some clips and things like that to be a deterrent for skateboarders so that they're not using the wall for their ramps and whatnot. And then we are going to be getting a farmer's market at the end of the pier in the beach, in the parking lot, starting in, I believe, April, end of April, first part of May. And one of the things that we needed to do was provide a restroom facility with hot water, and so we took our existing restroom building here, we have a little area right here, that mostly with using city staff, we're constructing a restroom in that facility. So we're using our city staff and in a pretty cost-effective way, and putting that restroom in so that we can serve not only the farmer's market, but Surfside Seafood. A lot of the patrons that go to that have to use the public restrooms, which unfortunately are less than pristine shape. They are clean now, but they don't look the best, and so this will provide an opportunity for patrons of Surfside Seafood with keyed access to actually have a nicer restroom facility. And so the tenant there is very happy about that. Some of the other things that we've done is we've enhanced safety and security measures around the beach areas. You can see here, when I first got here and when I took this picture, there was a post but no light out there. What we've done is this is taken at night. I don't know, maybe could someone hit the lights back there just real quickly? I'll show you because it doesn't show up really. But this is taken at nighttime. And what we did was we added lights, or got the lights working back here on the back of the restroom, and we added some lights that are right in this area. We've had a lot of vandalism out in that area, and I think the police can comment that we've seen far less vandalism around the restrooms now that it's lit up pretty well. On top of that, what we're doing now, at least at Miranda Park in Bubbling Springs, the parks have a closing time of 10 p.m. We're closing the restrooms, and that also has resulted in a lot less vandalism and a lot less work for staff. We also added a gate to Lot C. Lot C is the parking lot that's not lit, that is down by, I believe, Surfside 2. And we added a gate this year. The police locked that again at 10 p.m. when the park closes. There's really no reason for people to be down there, and because it's so dark, there's usually, well, there's activity that we probably would rather not be down there, and the gate has really reduced that, and the residents in that area have contacted us on numerous occasions to thank us because it's made a big difference in their mind on how much bad activity is going on down there. We have regular beach patrols. I know I see them down there all the time. They're traveling through the beach areas during the night. And we also implemented a camping ordinance this year. So we had, as many cities do, a little bit of a homeless problem down in that area. And it kind of made it a little bit scary for people that might be going out in the evening on the pier and would walk upon some of these folks that were camping and weren't readily visible until you happened upon them. And so we've seen a big drop in the number of homeless folks that are out in the beach areas. And one of your goals last year, of course, was we want the beach to feel safer and more friendly to people that may be coming to Waimea Beach. Now this started at the very end of 2013. One of the things that I noted in my 120-day assessment last year was that we had a tremendous amount of deferred maintenance. We're not unique. A lot of cities after the recession did not put a lot of money into maintenance. We put virtually no money into maintenance. And so during the end of 2013 and into 2014, we started just doing even some simple things. This was at the, oops, I'm sorry. This was at the housing office. And I think Joe, when I got here, I'm like, well, what happened there? And he was told, what, 7 or 8 years ago when you got here that a delivery truck had hit it, and we just never fixed it. So it had been sitting there for years. And so that was fixed pretty easily. We had never had our roof power washed or cleaned, and we had moss and soot and all sorts of stuff growing on the roof, so that was cleaned up. And we started to look at, this was a lot of dead plant material outside City Hall, and We had some of that dead plant material pulled out and cleaned that up. We also had a leak in the public restroom outside the council chambers, and it leaked into the wall between the council chambers and the outside area, and that had been there for years. No one had ever fixed that, and so the council chambers was in need of paint. I don't think it had been painted in about 35 years, and so it was in need of paint. And so we took the opportunity while we were opening up the wall to fix the plumbing to go ahead and use that as a time to paint so that we wouldn't have to come back and do it again. And so we changed the color scheme a little bit. We also took the opportunity to put in a little better technology and sound system, although I think we need to still work on that, as a couple of you have pointed out. And we added the screens. We had probably some near misses of council members having to lean back so far near the stairs that it would have only taken a slight little push to topple down. And so now at the dais, you have screens, and so the public can see the screen behind you, and you can see the screen in front of you. And I will say that the school district was very pleased with this ad for the same reasons. I think it was very difficult for them to watch a presentation from the seat from the dais, and so they were very appreciative of this fact as well. We continued with our pavement management program. Last year we lost about $400,000 in monies that were no longer allowed to be used for pavement management, but we are continuing with that program. So we crack seal, and then we do a resurfacing, recoating of the streets. And I think it's about every 4 years, just about every street in Port Hueneme is redone. So that's an area that we continued this year. We also heard you loud and clear last year. You wanted more special events for Port Hueneme residents, and so we did that. We had a community health fair in May of last year. We had Dorothy's Dolls, which was an event at the museum, which is kind of now maybe a little bit re-energized some interest in the museum. We had the Copacabana soccer tournament. That is an event that draws people in from all over, and it's about a 2 or 3 day event.
It's a weekend event.
Weekend event, so it puts people in hotels here, which is really good for us as well. We also continued with our Santa Float, which has been a long-term tradition in Port Hueneme, as well as our second annual holiday tree lighting. So this year, I would say our attendance even surpassed last year, which puts us probably somewhere around 300, 350 people in attendance. We reopened our pier. I think we expected we'd probably get 50 or 60 people, and I don't know, Carmen, what do we think? We had like about 200?
About
200 people show up for that event. We also worked with the chamber on the food event, food truck event that was the Sunset Supper, and that was held throughout the summer over at Hueneme Beach. We obviously had the Hueneme Beach Festival, and then we had our regular annual holiday event for seniors at the community center. One thing coming up, I believe, tomorrow is a new tween night out. It's a partnership with the county libraries and our recreation staff, and we're going to be holding an event for young teens. And so that's a brand new event. So again, we heard you loud and clear. I think we just have shown that this community will get engaged if you provide them with some things to be engaged around. And so we are going to probably be looking for direction to see if you want to continue that. I'll be showing you in just a few minutes some of the events that we've been talking about and planning for this coming year. There's some new opportunities that we're looking at this year as well. Toward the end of the year, we should see Ross, Dress for Less, coming into the Mandalay shopping center. It'll be basically where the Do It Best used to be located. We also, as I mentioned earlier, in April, we'll be getting a farmer's market. I think that's the end of April, maybe first part of May. They're starting to work with us a little bit on getting the word out, because we want to make sure that this is a successful venture for the farmer's market folks. It's the same farmer's market that currently does a Sunday farmer's market in Channel Islands. Our farmer's market will be on Saturday, the day before. We also just recently, at the last council meeting, you guys gave the go-ahead for us to be, the city of Port Hueneme, to be part of the Ventura County Lodging Association. That will help our hotels get better exposure to areas outside of Ventura County.
Ooh.
Hopefully bring, hopefully, are we keeping you awake? We should turn the lights back on, maybe, yeah? Let's see. Anyway, so we'll be moving forward with those items in 2015. We also saw some private development occur, which was our Taco Bell. And again, that happened without the benefit of any redevelopment or anything, but it really actually did turn out pretty nicely. And we should be seeing McDonald's doing essentially the same kind of thing over on Channel Islands Boulevard pretty soon. Now, this next year, and I think we've talked a little bit about this, we have some pretty significant challenges ahead of us financially, some unexpected, in fact. And so those are economic challenges, financial challenges. We still have a lot of maintenance, repair, and replacement we need to do, and we're looking at some community events for this next year as well. In terms of economic challenges, I just put this picture up here because even though we all live here or stay here or visit here, I think it's important to show that while Port Hueneme is, 5 square miles, that's everything is red, a huge part of the city is the Navy base and the port. And these, as government entities, pay the city no property tax directly. The port has some tenants, and they do pay some possessory interest. But for the most part, any sales tax that would ordinarily be provided if these areas were privately held, we don't get, and the same for property tax. On top of that, getting the folks, the contractors on these areas to pay their business license tax has been challenging, to say the least. So really what that leaves the city with is these areas for generating property and sales tax for the city. We have older housing stock, was built, a lot of it, I think about 75% of it is at least 50 years old, and probably about almost 50% is 50 years old or more. And so that, because it's older, smaller housing stock, it doesn't generate the same level of property tax that we would normally get if we had more executive housing or higher level housing. And we don't have a whole lot of commercial. We're pretty much built out. We have a fairly large amount of vacancies, so while we get property tax, even if a property is vacant, if it's a retail type establishment, we won't be getting any sales tax. We also have a number of things that happened more recently. We had a Department of Finance loan that had been in place, I believe, since around redevelopment. And we just got notice that the Department of Finance would no longer let us recognize that loan as an obligation. We're going to be challenging that, but in the meantime, we're not allowed to, that loan ceases to function. We also got notice that our gas tax allocation will be reduced for 15 and 16. That's happening across the state, and that's primarily because gasoline prices are down, therefore the taxes that are generated off of that and then redistributed to cities basically are down. We have a number of areas where we have some litigation risks. We will continue to see rising costs for employee pensions and benefits. Our CalPERS rates go up every year. This year we're expecting in excess of $200,000 increase for us. As I just mentioned, we have sales property tax and TOT revenue limitations, and just to give you an example, this hotel, because we're so close to the Navy base, gets a lot of Navy stays or military stays. And a regular hotel stay generates 10% on the value of a room here, and that comes back to the city. If it's a federal employee who stays here, Department of Defense, any kind of military, they don't pay anything to the city. So we lose that revenue for any kind of military stay. So it's kind of a double hit for us on the military base. Great engine for the region, puts a lot of impacts on the city. Thousands of trips every day coming in and out of the base on our streets. But again, we don't receive any revenue to help pay for the street repairs or maintenance. And then, of course, we have had a lot of deferred maintenance. So I'm going to start to go through some of the remaining areas that we need to work on. So Miranda Park, due to the water situation, we sort of accelerated the irrigation issues. We've gone in and changed a lot of the irrigation to help with the water situation. We still have issues with turf, with lighting, with walkways, with our court repairs. And so those are things that we still have out there that we need to address. Wainimi Beach Park, we still have some of the landscape areas that were, the irrigation was damaged as part of the erosion issues. So we still need to go out and fix those items. We need to do some repairs on the Ventura bathroom, the Ventura Road bathroom. They're at the terminus of Ventura Road. We have a lot of landscape issues out at the beach park that haven't been addressed. You can see here, oops. You can see here we have, we have broken benches and things like that. We want to do some work in the bathrooms. So still a lot of work to do at Wainimi Beach. Bubbling Springs Parks, very similar situation. We have areas where there's wood rot, painting. We have assets that have, over time, been damaged or gotten in such disrepair that had to be removed, and we have not replaced those in many cases. Similar situation with the bathroom there. And then on a happier note, thought we should end on a happier note. In 2015, we were looking at a number of events. I mentioned the Tween Night that's happening tomorrow. In April, we'll have our annual extravaganza, that's the Easter egg hunt. April, Farmers Market grand opening. Also in April, the Copacabana Soccer Tournament will return. We're looking at May 23rd as a Beaches Back event. Health Fair in June. We were recently contacted by Subaru. They would like to do a Subaru car show at Wainimi Beach, and that we'd be looking at June. July, we're looking at movies in the park. That would be Bubbling Springs Park, but also the beach park. And that'll be for residents and families. We're also looking at, again, our annual beach festival will be held from August 23rd, or 22nd, 23rd. And then we're looking at September 13th for the peer-to-peer marathon Day at the Beach event.
Let's see the sandcastle.
Carmen can tell you a little bit about that. I don't know that this is an all-inclusive list, but she's trying to work with some of the
Yeah, I think the idea is
mission.
to put Sandcastle along with another event. So that might be a September 13th event where the peer-to-peer marathon is the marathon that starts in Ventura. The turnaround point is in Port Wainimi. But why not have different activities going on at the beach open to the public and have a Sandcastle event at the same time? Since it's already, that marathon's already drawing people out to the beach.
And that's it. So comments, questions on any of the stuff that we have working. Again, I'm really proud of the team. I think they did an outstanding job last year. I think everybody said they worked harder than they remember working in a long, long time. It was, all hands on deck all the time. So very proud of the group, and also really excited about some of the events coming up this year.
Just real quick to keep it on the radar, since we just talked about the peer-to-peer marathon, because I know this came up 2 years in a row. We want to make sure we route it down like San Pedro Street and around by the perimeter line rather than down Ventura Road, because the folks in Ventura West can't get out of their houses if we come straight down Ventura Road. And that came up the first year, and then the second year it was like, whoops, we forgot to talk about it, and it was too late to do anything. So I just want to make sure that's on everybody's mind when we talk about routing.
The city engineer did have a meeting with the peer-to-peer marathon staff, and so right now they're working on that. I'll take that back to Kit and for consideration. But
Because
you know,
last
it
time
is-
it got forgotten somehow.
yeah, and it is a Boston qualifier, so distance is really critical. The route is very critical, so yeah, we'll have to take all that into
They can move the
consideration.
turnaround point, whatever they have to do, but it's a real problem for the folks in Ventura West.
Okay, any questions from any council members or any other comments?
My compliments to staff and everybody who put all this together. Last year was kind of a step in a positive direction, I think.
Good, okay. Well, thank you, Cynthia. So for the entire group, council members or staff, what were some of the key factors that contributed to these successes? How did you do all of this?
I know with the issue with the sand erosion, beach, et cetera, is that the council members and staff, we all had one voice.
Okay.
So we were collectively and uniformly saying the same thing to different constituents, but really on the same page.
You're on the same page. Okay, good. What other factors contributed to these successes?
Well, I think that from a director's standpoint, I think we've been closer than we ever have, well, at least in years, and we all worked as a team.
Okay.
With clear guidance from the city manager on what and how and where our priorities and our goals and objectives were.
Okay.
You know, I think one of the other things too is that if anybody had an idea, it was not said, no, because we don't have enough staff, et cetera. It was, what if? Let's play it out. Let's see if we can incorporate that. And so it was really coming to the table with staff, and then, you know, Cynthia's direct report saying, could we possibly do more, and what if we considered X, Y, and Z?
So ideas were welcome, sounds like. Yeah.
Cynthia, being fairly new, brought with her some experience, some of her career experience that we didn't have here at the city before, economic development, that sort of thing. I think that helped quite a bit.
Okay.
I have something that, at least for us, and I think that I speak for all the other departments too. Directors can give direction, but I think the employees that carry out the actual work are important. So we've done a really good job at attracting and keeping qualified employees who I feel go above and beyond what maybe goes on in other organizations.
You have to have the people to do the job, don't you? Good. Okay. Anything else? Yeah.
Redirecting funding.
Oh, okay.
So looking at your business plan and finding opportunities of where you can direct funding to bring on some of these new programs, activities, or projects that may never have been addressed before.
It's exciting to be able to do that.
Oh, yeah, it is.
And with that, I believe that what Carmen's referring to is there's also collaboration with maybe other agencies in the community.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, that's just a little exercise to keep in mind those things as we talk about priorities for the future. So all of these things, these factors will probably be important in the coming year as well. So I'll move that out of the way. Okay, so now I'd like to give just an orientation to this document so that everybody can be on the same page with that. This document right here, it says Priorities Worksheet. The items on pages 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all items that came out of my interviews with city council members. I asked the question, what are your priorities? What do you hope would be accomplished over the course of next year? So for council members, those are the same things that were provided to you with the agenda in advance. They've simply been numbered here. And what the staff has done is gone through each one of those items and has indicated whether it's currently underway, whether new resources would be needed, and then added some other comments, which in some cases is the status of the item. So that's what is there first. The second part of this document, starting on page 5 to the end of the document, I also asked Cynthia for her department heads to identify what other things are underway. Because of course there are many things that are underway. And so those items from 1 to, the last page is, 1 to 23 tells you some other key things that are underway in all of the departments. So that's what constitutes this entire document. So all of these that are stated as underway are ones that, unless the council indicates should not be underway, would continue on into the year. We'd like, though, to give an opportunity for council members to discuss any of these that there's an interest in discussing. Rather than simply going through one to the end, which would cause us to run out of time, what I'd like to suggest is that council members take a look at which ones you would like to discuss. I'll give you just a few minutes or a few moments to perhaps put a circle by them, and then I'll ask you, and then I'll note those, and we will discuss those items first. Once we do that, then we'll go through and we'll be able to see if there is, by exception, any that should be removed from this list. And then the final piece will be to do some dot voting to see where the council's priorities are. But first, we need to determine which ones council members would like to discuss at this time. So take a few moments.
So discuss to get clarification.
Yeah, clarification. Yeah, discuss, exactly, thank you. Thank you for that question. Discuss to get clarification about what's underway or what you would like to see underway, because there are a few items that came up that we said this morning would be discussed. For instance, transparency, internet broadcasting of council meetings, those are listed on here, and I would suspect that I know that we need to discuss those.
Just to start here, I'd like to discuss number 10, determine how to enforce business license ordinance.
Okay, so I'm going to go up here. In fact, could department heads possibly move this over to the side, get this out of the way? Any volunteers? Okay, number 10, a little X, check mark.
So,
So you can-
assuming that if an item is on here and no council member wants to discuss it, what happens to that item?
Well, if it's underway, then unless the staff indicates there's a question that the staff has, then it would remain underway. It would continue.
So how do we know what's underway and what's not?
There's a column that says currently underway for all of them.
Oh, okay.
There's an indication of what's underway.
Okay, and if it's not underway?
And if there's a no, then that would be a good one to discuss.
But it's also too, I think there's some exception there. In some instances here, somebody might have brought it up, but it was where it was assumed that it was ceased, but then it's a clarification that it hasn't been ceased, the program. So we can then just assume it's still kind of underway because we haven't, you know, like I'm referring to item 12 and 13.
Okay. That may be a clarification that's needed if any council member would like to talk about those. So whatever council members are ready to tell me what you want to discuss, I'll put in that X mark.
2, 8, and 22.
2, 8, and 22. 2, 8, and 22, okay? Yes, Jim?
I would like to offer item number 14, ensure transparency of the government.
Yes?
Number 10, enforcing the business ordinance. License 16, leaving public speaking time at the beginning of the council meeting. Add TV, internet, so seniors and residents can watch.
17.
And 18, promote tourism to expand our legal business, our local business.
Gotcha. I got them all.
Thank you.
And I'd like to add number 7, please.
Yes? Okay.
Museum.
I'm sorry?
Museum.
Museum, which one is, right, go right. 7 on the other. The other side, we're gonna call that B7. We'll do A and B. Okay?
council item, and that's a complete comprehensive review of the city's cost allocation program. And then kind of a footnote on that is a detailed review of our utility rates and how our cost allocation program has driven our fee structure.
Tom, did you mean one on this sheet or one on the other sheet?
Oh, is there?
Oh, well, I didn't know I was working.
Each of them,
Oh.
or did you mean,
Oh, economic development program? Is that
Yes,
what you're about?
that was
Yeah,
it.
this one, okay. Yeah, no, I think we're gonna have to say A and B, but I got that, okay. So, Tom, the cost allocation program, we can certainly talk about that as part of A, I've made a note.
That's
And the
what-
other one was
The
what?
utility rates,
Okay.
water in particular.
Okay, water rates.
Well, utility, I mean,
Oh, it is
I
utility.
don't want to limit it, but water is of particular interest, yes.
Okay, and I believe, just so, water rates was somewhere. I think, maybe it's 19, but anyway, we'll talk about that. Any others, Tom? Doesn't mean we can't talk about others, but I just wanted to check off the ones, okay.
Water conservation, I think is vaguely mentioned in here, and I can't find it again by looking at it, but one of my colleagues had mentioned it. Water conservation is critically important for us.
Okay, I'll put it here, and then we can make sure that we address it.
I think it's on B, item 3. B, item
Item 3,
It says a beach landscaping improvement and water conservation.
item 4.
No.
Three.
Page 5. Page 5.
Oh, page 5, I see water conservation with regards to the beach landscaping.
Yeah, so we can,
That's it. We can talk about that.
And actually 4, and 3 and 4.
Okay. Put it on both. Okay. Tom, were there any others at this point? Okay.
Well, yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty much
Oh,
covered.
no, there's a lot. Okay, so, so the first one is create an economic development program for business retention and expansion. And it is underway, and yes, new resources would be needed if new programs are added. Is there someone on staff who can say what is underway? Okay,
So,
great.
let me preface this by saying that we've always focused on the civilian side of the city, so I don't recall ever having programs to try to attract court-related tenants or military kinds of folks. It's been focused, the veteran community, you've got basically neighborhood serving shopping centers. I mean, having said that, we did accommodate the district expansion on the NCL Ward 2 and the Sunkist site in that respect, but not specifically businesses or tenants. So we basically have proactive and reactive kinds of programs. Unfortunately, most of those are reactive. Proactive, the council's funded our membership in EDCBC, which a variety of funding mechanisms which allows our small businesses to access all the resource programs from this regional business retention and attraction organization. You've got SCORE, you've got Women's Economic Ventures, you've got the Small Business Association, the WIN, the Workforce Investment Board, the GED, which is the Governor's Office of Economic Development, the Small Business Development Center. There's loans and training and programs that basically we by buying into this program allows our businesses and some commercial properties to participate. We also help fund the Grow Your Business, Live Your Life campaign. It's an advertising campaign. Much like trying to brand Orange County, they were trying to brand Ventura County. The study they indicated was our strength is Ventura County is not likely to steal or attract large businesses, but businesses that are in the San Fernando Valley or LA or the San Joaquin Valley. If they're looking at expanding, Ventura County is a great option. And so there's a website, you can actually Google that and you can see what that's all about. Reactively, well, and then by default, I'm the city's economic development director, and I think council and when being the business ombudsman. So typically people that are having problems, not just with local regulations, but at a regional county level, I'll help basically businesses navigate the fire department and the stormwater issues and source control, planning issues. So typically those will be referred to me as the ombudsman. Reactively, we typically are contacted by shopping center owners primarily, that are buying for a particular tenant or they're trying to reposition the shopping center. And so we've offered a variety of help, and there's some examples here listed on you know, with Mandalay, you know, with Do It Best struggling, you know, we almost lost them as a business. So what happened is we got identified Ross, and so, but Ross needed a Do It Best location. We relocated Do It Best, and then we tried to not lose any businesses, so we were able to relocate a dry cleaner and a realty office, and then facilitate Ross's needs, which is they need to expand the building. So if you're familiar with Do It Best, the outdoor garden center, they're actually going to capture that as part of the building space. They need a building facade that they demand that's similar to Ralph's for their sign panels. There's some challenges with their loading in the truck dock, and there's still some challenges going on with that, and their trash compactor. So a variety of issues that we get involved in, that kind of thing.
Okay, so,
And similar stuff that's listed here.
okay. So let's just, that's a good intro, kind of a summary. Let me ask council members who wanted to talk about this, what questions might you have? I don't remember now who asked me to check.
Well, it's more comments.
Okay.
My interest in the EDC program isn't necessarily just business retention or attraction. It
Okay.
has to do with dedicated resources for grants, you know, seeking out grants. I don't know if we have dedicated staff or someone that would be assigned that responsibility. A good example is the partnership that occurred with the Harbor District and the Police Department, taking advantage of the Homeland Security opportunities that translated to benefit to the city. So I'm wondering whether or not we have that, kind of dedicated resource to seeking out those opportunities.
Someone to do that.
I know that there are funds out there to be had. For instance, evolving from Sacramento, we talked about this before, is the infrastructure enhancement program, which is really kind of to backfill some of the redevelopment opportunities we no longer have. Are we ready to hit the ground running and take advantage of that tool that's emerging from Sacramento? Do we have a person dedicated to do so? Collaboration with the Harbor District and the Navy on taking advantage of, well, particularly the Navy, joint use opportunities. And this isn't new, but it's worthy of revisiting, particularly with the change in demand. And that's taking advantage of some of their on-base facilities and assets to the benefit of our community. And there may actually be some dollar opportunities that come from those joint use opportunities. So again, who's in the lead on this? Is it being pursued? Can we not make that a priority? Also, asset management, and that's to take a look at our real estate opportunities that we have left. I see that Market Street, I'm interested in hearing the wheres and why-fors of interest that's now being expressed upon the development of that property. But that's not the only property. We have the aquaculture facility, we have certain parcels in and around Hueneme Beach that may be, again, opportunities for repositioning. An example would be, can we dedicate some of our beach parking to an RV facility that could generate TOT, additional fees based on utility hookups, somebody that's really taking a look at these kinds of potentials that are out there. And maybe that's happening. That was what I envisioned, more than just a business retention attraction.
I see. So your interest is in knowing if there's a dedicated resource to explore.
To really dedicate to economic development, yes.
So do you have a comment on whether you have such a?
We don't.
You don't, no. So that would be a budget allocation?
It would, yes. It would be either reassigning someone or having to seek someone on a contract basis maybe, or, there are any numbers of ways we can do it. But it would be required some.
Yeah.
One thing I hate to say is, we tried that and it didn't work, is that those were different times, but we did have for a while a person, I don't recall if they were on retainer, strictly on commission to try to hunt out grants, and we never came up with a whole lot. It doesn't mean it's not worth doing, but it has been tried in the past and it didn't pan out, but that doesn't mean it won't work out.
And having a dedicated resource. So.
And then too, as we talk about then, I think he was reiterating to the Market Street and what we're doing there. I think maybe that was what.
Well, I think it's on the list here. I don't know what category.
So, yeah, so, just a little bit about that is that we've had things around it develop. So I know that was new paint palette, and this hotel went through major renovation. but certainly much more attractive from the street side. And then there's been some development on the other side of Market Street for like 5 homes that has come up in city council within the last year, and some other things that even had to do with an older house that was on Wainimi Road. And so some of the development around Market Street has affected them that area too. And what comes first, the chicken or the egg, but you know, that's all part of maybe the larger redevelopment of an area of the city.
I think it's exciting having Councilmember Fig on council with his breadth of experience. And even though some of his ideas may appear been there, done that ideas, times have changed, and he wouldn't mention it if he didn't think there was opportunity. So I'd support Councilmember Fig's suggestion. And also, if there is a way that we can tap into his knowledge, skills, knowledge, and ability beyond just as a council member, I'd be in favor of that too.
Wow. Stop while you were ahead.
He's busy.
Be afraid of what you asked for, because you might get it.
Yeah, okay, yes.
Absolutely correct what Councilman Bree said, Councilman Fig is.
No, can't pay you.
That's right.
Let me give you an example.
He's on target.
If you dedicate a person to grant funds, we did a lot of innovative things in my day that may not be possible today. Crossing guards. We use the city's demographics to our advantage to reposition federal block grant monies to take up services that otherwise would have to come out of the general fund. I just know there's that kind of stuff out there.
I'm sure there's lots of stuff that we're overlooking because we just don't have anybody looking.
Exactly.
Okay, so I've captured it, the ideas of dedicated resource, if funds can be made. Okay, good. So the second one is establish a preemptive standard program with a plan in place. So I think, who would like to talk about that?
I'll talk a little bit about it. We've had some discussions with regarding lobbyist contract right now. When Tom brought this up earlier, Lynn Jaquez, who's the principal at CJ Lake, normally makes a West Coast swing in January, February. For whatever reason, that didn't happen this year. And when we originally started that contract, that was project specific, and somehow it's crept up to be a retainer level. And also, I will say that Lynn hasn't been handling our account. It's been another account executive over there who I'm not altogether happy with. If we read the suggestion here, it talks about amending that contract down and perhaps retaining Noble Consultants. John Moore Noble knows a lot about the Corps of Engineers, knows a lot about state regulators, and this might be a good suggestion as far as lobbying goes. CJ Lake is probably really good for Washington-specific items. I was at the transportation infrastructure mini hearing, I guess it was, with the ranking member and Councilmember Brownlee. Lynn Krieger brought up the Harbor Maintenance Trust Fund to them, and I mentioned our specific issue and also the problem that the Corps of Engineers of stovepiping projects, and which, we've had discussions with the Corps in Washington about this, and staff will be certainly aware of that. Streamline that project. The two members that were there certainly understand this, and that's a sort of a bigger project. As far as being preempted, we're trying to keep this on the radar with the member staff, and they're all well aware of it, as is Lynn Krieger. And I don't know, Chris, if you have anything more to say on that?
Well, I will say that one of the things we are attempting to do is cooperate with Lynn Krieger. Her agency is the local sponsor of the project, and currently we're working with her on a series of letters and a strategy there is a series of thank you letters out to certain electives that she's putting together, and then they're staged out over time to do, as you said, which is to keep the awareness up over time between the finishing up of this cycle and then the next cycle. But that's pretty much kind of the goal, is to keep that awareness out there.
Part of my thinking is the preemptive side of this. It's one thing to have lobbyists and you've got political affiliations and partnerships you can create, but I'm talking about doing annual monitoring by way of profiles at the beach to make sure that we're not going to find ourselves 5 years out that it's too late. Now we're going to lose another part of our infrastructure. So we need to monitor that, compare it against the water resources benchmarks that have already been put in place, so that we can be prepared to act long before we have an erosion event. That's what I'm kind of promoting. The other part of this is to make certain that we have accountability within our organization. Who's going to take this on? Who's going to be keeping the council informed as we proceed into this monitoring process? So I think there needs to be ownership of the overall program.
Well, the profile, Beacon has a beach profiling monitoring program going on for several years. So there's some good data there.
And they've been using it here?
It's a good resource. And yeah, absolutely, we should be getting where we can. There's some really talented folks there. But we also know that this is a steady state erosion. We know exactly how much sand comes off this beach, so it's not like, well, oops, we got a problem. We know exactly what this is, and the problem here is as I've said often, is convincing the congressman from Nebraska that they ought to send money to California. I mentioned the Harbor Maintenance Trust Fund. For those who don't know, that's a fund that's funded by a tax that paid by every ship that comes into a harbor in the U.S. And there's something like $8 or $9 billion in there right now. And in years past, when we've been short, the Corps has been able to tap into that and make up the shortfall. Congress has blocked that. They're holding it as a positive asset, so it looks good on the books, but they're not been spending it. Julia Brownlee got an amendment in the Water Resources Development Act that requires an accounting for how it's being spent. So that should help us. The fact is, we all know there's plenty of sand, there's actually plenty of money. The difficulty is connecting it politically and making it happen in Congress. And that's where our efforts really need to be focused.
I guess my question is, when did we realize we had a problem with the beach in this last cycle?
About 3 years ago.
How did we become aware of that?
They started shorting us on our sand.
How far back does it go that they shorted us on that sand?
Quite a way.
Quite a way.
It goes back 3
That's my whole point of monitoring.
Yeah. So maybe could staff elaborate a little bit on the question of the annual monitoring?
Yes.
And Chris?
So one thing I would mention about monitoring and annual monitoring, as council members probably remember, the Army Corps did an extensive profiling on the beach this year, both in front of the harbor. They always come in and they look at the sand trap and they look at the Channel Islands Harbor because that's where they're going to be taking the sand from. This year they did an extensive profile of the beach on Juanimi's Beach, all the way from the jetty all the way to the other side of the pier. So they have a baseline before the dredging started to know what the profile was. It helped them. It helped them to determine how they would place the sand on our beach when they did do the placing. I've also been told through our contacts and especially with the help of Noble Consultants connecting with the Corps, is that they intend to do some additional monitoring, unprecedented monitoring, perhaps profiling more than they would normally. They wouldn't normally do this, but they're going to be keeping a good eye on the beach for us for their reasons. But with our contacts with Noble and our help from Noble and their ability to understand the goings on of the Corps intimately, we should be able to get very good information and help on those kind of issues. And many of these strategies are being formulated right now with Noble to look at this for us in the future, and we're going to be keeping eyes peeled on those developments.
Also, it's our understanding that the Army Corps is already scheduled to short us on our sand
Next year.
next year. They've already admitted they're gonna short us on our sand. So we know how much sand we're losing, we know how much sand we need. We know what the Army Corps should provide us, and so do they. And they have already told us they're not gonna fund complete sand funding. So we're on this cycle of, the same cycle we were on before when we lost our lead.
Okay, but it sounds like there's no argument that that this is important, the staff is monitoring this.
And Chris is the point person.
And Chris, okay, that's what I thought, so I put Public Works Director. So maybe
Just
one more
quick-
comment?
Quick question, and following up Councilman Breeze. When the heck is the sand going? I hope it's not going to Silver Strand, they have too much.
No, it's staying in the sand trap until the sand trap overflows and clogs up the inlet for the Channel Islands Harbor.
You know, I will say this, and no knock on Lois Capps, but when they had that coastal district, we were just one project from here to San Luis. And now with the new redistricting and the new Congress member, we are the focus on coastal issues for Julia Brownlee. And I think that kind of focus has made a difference, and I hope it continues to make a difference, yeah.
Okay, so let's move on. I'm going to try to keep us moving here. The third one to discuss is number 7, resolve the issue of revenue sharing agreement with the Harbor District, so listed as a possible priority. Is there a question for staff on that one? Jeff?
I don't know if it's a question or not.
Okay,
It's
sure.
an absolute need for developing some sort of finality to this issue with the port. I hope we can come to a terminus on this, because it's creating a bad image for the city. It's, and I think the port would probably be willing to come up with some sort of reasonable settlement, but we need to get it solved.
Okay, so that's just your comment. It's just to keep moving forward on it. Okay. Okay. All right. The next one is the 8, create a financial path for our city government. More words than that, but that's plenty.
I asked for that one. And this is the big question. And it has to do, I think, you know, we've seen what's happened in the last year or so, and then the problem with the DOF. You know, we're looking to cut another $1.5 million out of our budget, and we really have to decide what kind of a city we are. You know, I was struck at Camarillo's 50th anniversary celebration, and Charlotte Craven in her little speech made a statement that stuck in my head. She said, one of the smartest things the founders of the city ever did was be a contract city. They are 4 times bigger than we are, and they have 30 employees. I've resisted contracting for a long, long time with all my strength, but I've come to the point where I really don't see another option if this city is going to go forward. You know, we are, you know, the nature of the world has changed around us, and I think we really need to make a very tough decision here as to what kind of a city we want to be and how we want to be organized. And you know, I'm going to be advocating that we move towards becoming a contract city.
I don't know if I'm quite there yet. I think that these kinds of decisions really have to be carefully evaluated and thought through. It may have been Cynthia that made a suggestion, and maybe I'll just throw it out, that this may be kind of a watershed period in our history, that maybe it's going to require more than one budget cycle to kind of, you know, right the ship, so to speak. It may be more like a 2-year process. And whatever measures are decided in the council process of the budget be rolled out gradually, not overnight and you know, a sudden,
You're a new council member, this is all new to you, and it might seem overnight to you, but some of us have been here for a while. and
so
this
you're
is-
already there.
No, I'm not there either. But I'm just saying, the terminology that you're using, the position that you're taking, that as if no one has been thinking about this, needs to be.
Oh, I didn't say
What's
that.
wrong?
Yeah, no, yeah, no, I
I
think
didn't
the
say that.
comment is that they're complicated issues and that it may take more than one budget year to work through them. I
Yeah.
think that was the
Yeah.
comment that was.
And I'm blaming Cynthia for the idea. So Doug, there you go.
Yeah,
No, I
so-
think it's a prudent approach.
Yeah, so today is not to
solve it.
solve the
Yeah.
problem, but rather to surface that this is an issue, that just financial planning is an issue. Yeah,
Yeah.
Sylvia?
No, certainly in all the strategic planning sessions that I've seen as a city council member here for the last 6 years, is that we have seen a projection of where our financials have gone, from where we are to where we were to 5 years, maybe even more out, so that we can kind of take a look at if we have a deficit this year, in 10 years it could be umpteen million, and so we've had those numbers before where we've actually then, as part of our discussion, have talked about then the financial considerations of the city.
Doug, one of the reasons I'm suggesting that maybe we take a longer view of this, and, I've said this in the past, is that I'd like to explore some options, like a police parcel tax, which would be in place of perhaps a Measure M. But it's a dedicated source of money. Yeah, it requires a 2/3 vote threshold, but to me, that option ought to be pursued. The public ought to be tested on it before we make hard, fast decisions on the future of any of our departments. So that's not going to happen overnight. That's why I'm suggesting that there may be a longer period here of analysis.
I kind of like the idea of a longer view range because of the fact, in fact, Councilman Breed talked about earlier, we have a personality, our employees are part of the personality of this community. And the police department is uniquely positioned as they're Johnny on the spot. The citizens love them. I think there's been 2 previous tax increases, sales tax increases to help support the police department, stay in focus, but it's been put into general funds.